bios of all kinds of people. Who's Arjuna, who's Yudhishthir, who's all these different people. So it's a very useful, I guess, tool to give people this first canto. Prabhupada translated this before he came to the US, so he apparently had this idea of introducing these personalities. And then Bhagavad Gita, I mean, they're kind of simultaneously important for different reasons, but this first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I really like as an introduction. Excuse me, Baladev. So this is one of Prabhupada's little summaries, as I said, little explanation. The name Baladev, along with some others, appears in this particular verse or verse couplet. And then in Prabhupada's purport, he then explains who these people are. So Baladev is the divine son of Vasudeva by his wife, Rohini. He's also known as Rohini Nanda, or Nandana, sorry, the beloved son of Rohini. He was also entrusted to Nanda Maharaj along with his mother, Rohini, when Vasudeva embraced imprisonment by mutual agreement with Kamsa. So Nanda Maharaj is also the foster father of Baladeva, along with Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna and Lord Baladeva were constant companions from their very childhood, although they were stepbrothers. He is the plenary manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he meaning Baladeva. And therefore, he is as good and powerful as Lord Krishna. He belongs to the Vishnu Tattva, the principle of Godhead. He attended the Swayamvar ceremony of Draupadi along with Sri Krishna. When Subhadra was kidnapped by Arjuna by the organized plan of Sri Krishna, Baladeva was very angry with Arjuna and wanted to kill him at once. Sri Krishna, for the sake of his dear friend, Arjuna, fell at the feet of Lord Baladeva and implored him not to be so angry. Sri Baladeva was thus satisfied. So on the left, you see Arjuna kidnapping Subhadra. This is called, there are different types of weddings, and this is one of the weddings by kidnapping. Similarly, Baldev was at once very angry with the Kauravas, he was once very angry with the Kauravas, and he wanted to throw their whole city into the depths of the Jamna. The Kauravas are the descendants of Kuru. Kaurava means descendant of Kuru, and Kauravas refers to Duryodhana and his brothers specifically, but also including Dhritarashtra and others. But the Kauravas satisfied him by surrendering unto his lotus feet. He was actually the seventh son of Devaki prior to the birth of Lord Krishna, but by the will of the Lord, he was transferred to the womb of Rohini to escape the wrath of Kamsa. His other name is therefore Sankarshana, who is also the plenary portion of Sri Baladeva. Because he is as powerful as Lord Krishna, he can bestow spiritual power to the devotees. He is therefore known as Baladev. In the Vedas, also it is enjoined that no one can know the Supreme Lord without being favored by Baladev. Bala means spiritual strength, not physical. Some less intelligent persons interpret Bala as the strength of the body, but no one can have spiritual realization by physical strength. Physical strength ends with the end of the physical body, but spiritual strength follows the spirit soul to the next transmigration, and therefore the strength obtained by Baladeva is never wasted. The strength is eternal, and thus Baladeva is the original spiritual master of all devotees. And on a little more sort of advanced level, but Lord Nityananda Prabhu is the incarnation of, or the appearance of Lord Baladev, and therefore we look to Lord Nityananda Prabhu as our spiritual master as well. So here's Baladev. This is one of his pastimes, Rasa Yatra. He also, like Krishna, he also danced with the gopis. Sri Baladev was also a class friend of Lord Krishna as a student of Sandipani Muni. This is Sandipani Muni on the left. In his childhood, he killed many asuras along with Sri Krishna, and specifically killed the Dhenukasura at Talavan. During the Talavan is near, Van means forest. So the Tala forest near to Vrindavan. Vrinda means Tulsi and Van means forest. So Vrindavan means the forest of Tulsis, and Talavan, I forget what Tala means, but this is also forest. During the Kurukshetra battle, he remained neutral, and he tried his best not to bring about the fight. Kurukshetra battle, of course, I assume everyone on the call knows. Kurukshetra battle is where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, and then an 18-day war occurred after that. So he tried his best to stop the fight. He was in favor of Duryodhana, but still he remained neutral. When there was a club fight between Duryodhana and Bhimasena, he was present on the spot. He was angry at Bhimasena when the latter struck Duryodhana on the thigh or below the belt. It was cheating. And he wanted to retaliate the unfair action. But Lord Krishna saved Bhima from his wrath. But he left the place at once. Baladev left the place at once, being disgusted at Bhimasena. And after his departure, Duryodhana fell to the ground to meet his death. Of course, those who have read the story, Mahabharata and other places, we know that Krishna signaled to Bhima that he should hit Duryodhana in the thigh. Funeral ceremony of Abhimanyu, the son of Arjuna, was performed by him. Abhimanyu was killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. So Baladev performed that funeral ceremony. As he was the maternal uncle, it was impossible to be performed by any one of the Pandavas, who were all overwhelmed with grief. At the last stage, he departed from this world by producing a great white snake from his mouth, and thus he was carried by Sheshanaga in the shape of a serpent. Sheshanaga means that supreme serpent that sometimes you can see it appears over the head of Lord Vishnu. So here's Krishna and Balarama. Now, this is a selection taken from the Krishna book. It's Prabhupada's narration of one of the chapters of, I assume they correspond to, I think they correspond to the chapters in the 10th canto. There are 90 chapters in the 10th canto. Each chapter covers more or less a pastime, a lila of Krishna. And this is the 15th chapter of the Krishna book. So it would more or less correspond with the 15th chapter of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada translated the Krishna book first. He wanted the devotees to have access to Krishna's leelas. So the book was released in 1970. And so he probably translated it a little earlier. And then later on, Actually, Prabhupada didn't even finish the 10th canto by 1977 when he left. So beginning here, here's Krishna and Balaram, the picture with all of the residents of Vrindavan. I mean, not all, but these are some of his friends, girlfriends and boyfriends. And Krishna and Balaram are being adored by all their friends. So this is referring to the previous chapter. In this way, Sri Krishna, along with his elder brother Balaram, passed the childhood age known as Kumara and stepped into the age of Pauganda from the 6th year up to the 10th. At that time, all the cowherd men conferred and agreed to give those boys who had passed their 5th year charge of the cows in the pasturing ground. Given charge of the cows, Krishna and Balaram traversed Vrindavan, purifying the land with their footprints. Accompanied by the cowherd boys and Balaram, Krishna brought forward the cows and played on his flute through the forest of Vrindavan, which was full of flowers, vegetables, and pasturing grass. The Vrindavan forest was as sanctified as the clear mind of a devotee and was full of bees, flowers, and fruits. There were chirping birds and clear water lakes with waters that could relieve one of all fatigues. Sweet flavored breezes blew always, refreshing the mind and body. Krishna with his friends and Balaram entered the forest and, seeing the favorable situation, enjoyed the atmosphere to the fullest extent. Krishna saw all the trees overloaded with fruits and fresh twigs coming down to touch the ground as if welcoming him by touching his lotus feet. He was very pleased by the behavior of the trees, fruits, and flowers, and he began to smile, realizing their desires. Krishna then spoke to his elder brother Balaram as follows: "My dear brother, you are superior to all of us, and your lotus feet are worshipped by the demigods. Just see how these trees full with fruits have bent down to worship your lotus feet. It appears that they are trying to get out of the darkness of being obliged to accept the form of trees. Actually, the trees born in the land of Vrindavan are not ordinary living entities. Having held the impersonal point of view in their past lives, they are now put in this stationary condition of life. But now they have the opportunity of seeing you in Vrindavan, and they are praying for further advancement in spiritual life through your personal association. Generally, the trees are living entities in the modes of darkness. The impersonalist philosophers are in that darkness, but they eradicate it by taking full advantage of your presence. I think the drones that are buzzing all around you must have been your devotees in their past lives. They cannot leave your company because no one can be a better, more affectionate master than you. You are the supreme and original personality of Godhead. And the drones are just trying to spread your glories by chanting every moment. I think some of them must be great sages, devotees of your lordship, and they are disguising themselves in the form of drones because they are unable to give up your company, even for a moment. My dear brother, you are the supreme worshipable Godhead. Just see how the peacocks in great ecstasy are dancing before you. The deer, whose behavior is just like the gopis, are welcoming you with the same affection. And the cuckoos who are residing in this forest are receiving you with great joy because they consider that your appearance is so auspicious in their home. Even though they are trees and animals, these residents of Vrindavan are glorifying you. They are prepared to welcome you to their best capacity, as is the practice of great souls receiving another great soul at home. As for the land, it is so pious and fortunate that the footprints of your lotus feet are marking its body. It is quite natural for these Vrindavan inhabitants to thus receive a great personality like you. The herbs, creepers, and plants are also fortunate to touch your lotus feet. And by your touching the twigs, With your hands, these small plants are also made glorious. As for the hills and rivers, they too are now glorious because you are glancing at them. Above all, the damsels of Braja, the gopis, attracted by your beauty, are the most glorious because you embrace them with your strong arms. In this way, both Lord Krishna and Balaram began to enjoy the residents of Vrindavan to their full satisfaction, along with the calves and cows on the bank of the Yamuna. In some places, both Krishna and Balaram were accompanied by their friends. The boys were singing, imitating the humming sound of the drones, and accompanying Krishna and Balaram, who were garlanded with forest flowers. While walking, the boys sometimes imitated the quacking sound of the swans in the lakes. Or when they saw the peacocks dancing, they imitated them before Krishna. Krishna also moved his neck, imitating the dancing and making his friends laugh. The cows taken care of by Krishna had different names, and Krishna would call them with love. After hearing Krishna calling, the cows would immediately respond by mooing, and the boys would enjoy this exchange to their heart's content. They would all imitate the sound vibrations made by the different kinds of birds, especially the chikoras, peacocks, cuckoo, and bharavachas. Sometimes, when they would see the weaker animals fleeing out of fear of the sounds of tigers and lions, the boys, along with Krishna and Balaram, would imitate the animals and run away with them. When they felt some fatigue, they would sit down, and Balaram would put his head on the lap of one of the boys just to take rest. And Krishna would immediately come and begin massaging the legs of Balaram. And sometimes he would take a palm fan and fan the body of Balaram, causing a pleasing breeze to relieve him of his fatigue. Other boys would sometimes dance or sing while Balaram took rest. And sometimes they would wrestle amongst themselves or jump. When the boys were thus engaged, Krishna would immediately join them in catching their hands. He would enjoy their company and laugh and praise their activities. When Krishna would feel tired and fatigued, he would sometimes take shelter at the root of a big tree or the lap of a cowherd boy and lie down. When he would lie down with the boy or as a root as his pillow, some of the boys would come and massage his legs, and some would fan his body with a fan made from leaves. Some of the more talented boys would sing in very sweet voices to please him. Thus, very soon his fatigue would go away. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose legs are tended by the goddess of fortune, shared himself with the cowherd boys as one of them, expanding his internal potency to appear exactly like a village boy. But despite his appearing just like a village boy, there were occasions when he proved himself to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes men pose themselves as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and cheat innocent people, but they can only cheat, they cannot exhibit the potency of God. While Krishna was thus engaged in exhibiting his internal potency along with the supermost fortunate friends, there occurred another chance for him to exhibit the superhuman powers of Godhead. His most intimate friends, Shridama, Subal, and Stoka Krishna, began to address Krishna and Balaram with great love and affection. Thus, dear Balaram, you are very powerful, your arms are very strong. Dear Krishna, you are very expert in killing all kinds of disturbing demons. Will you kindly note that just near this place, there is a big forest of the name Talavan. This forest is full of palm trees, and all the trees are filled with fruits. Some are falling down, and some of them are very ripe, even in the trees. It's a very nice place, but because of a great demon, Dhenukasura, it's very difficult to go there. No one can reach the trees to collect the fruits. dear Krishna and Balaram, this demon is present there in the form of an ass, and he is surrounded by similar demon friends who assume the same shape. All of them are very strong, so it is very difficult to approach this place. Dear brothers, you are the only persons who can kill such demons. Other than you, no one can go there for fear of being killed. Not even animals go there, and no birds are sleeping there. They've all left. One can only appreciate the sweet aroma that is coming from that place. It appears that up until now, no one has tasted the sweet fruits there, either on the tree or on the ground. Dear Krishna, to tell you frankly, we are very attracted by this sweet aroma. Dear Balaram, let us all go there, enjoy these fruits. The aroma of the fruits is now spread everywhere. Don't you smell it from here? When Balaram and Krishna were thus petitioned by their smiling, intimate friends, they were inclined to please them, and they began to proceed towards the forest, surrounded by all their friends. Immediately upon entering the Talavan, Balaram began to yank the trees with his arms, exhibiting the strength of an elephant. Because of this jerking, all the ripe fruits fell down on the ground. Upon hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the demon Dayananda, who was living there in the form of an ass, began to approach with great force, shaking the whole field so that all the trees began to move as if there were an earthquake. The demon appeared first before Balaram and began to kick his chest with his hind legs. At first, Balaram did not say anything, but the demon with great anger began to kick him again more vehemently. This time, Balaram immediately caught hold of his legs, the legs of the ass, with one hand, and wheeling him around, threw him into the treetops. While he was being wheeled around by Balaram, the demon lost his life. Balaram threw the demon into the biggest palm tree about, and the demon's body was so heavy that the palm tree fell upon the other trees, and hurricane had passed through the forest. Oh, sorry, it split. The palm tree fell down upon other trees, and several fell down. It appeared as if a great hurricane had passed through the forest, and all the trees were falling down, one after another. This exhibition of extraordinary strength is not astonishing because Balaram is the supreme personality of Godhead, known as Ananta Sheshanaga, who is holding all the planets on the hoods of his millions of heads. The whole cosmic manifestation is maintained by him, exactly as two threads hold the weaving of a cloth. After the demon was thrown into the trees, all the friends and associates of Dayananda immediately assembled and attacked Balaram and Krishna with great force. They were determined to retaliate and avenge the death of their friend. But Krishna and Balaram began to catch each of the asses by the hind legs and exactly in the same way wheeled them around. Thus they killed all of them by throwing them into the palm trees. Because of the dead bodies of the asses, there was a panoramic scene. It appeared as if clouds of various colors were assembled in the trees. Hearing of this great incident, the demigods from the higher planets began to shower flowers on Krishna and Balaram and began to beat their drums and offer devotional prayers. A few days after the killing of Dayananda, people began to come in the Talavan forest to collect the fruits, and animals began to return without fear to feed on the nice grasses grown there. Just by chanting or hearing the transcendental activities and pastimes of the brothers Krishna and Balaram, one can amass pious activities. When Krishna, Balaram, and their friends entered the village of Vrindavan, they played their flutes, and the boys praised their uncommon activities in the forest. Their faces were decorated with tilak and smeared with dust raised by the cows. And Krishna's head was covered with a peacock feather, was decorated with a peacock feather. Both he and Balaram played their flutes, and the young gopis were joyous to see Krishna returning home. All the gopis in Vrindavan remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking of Krishna in the forest or of him herding cows in the pasture. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved, and they began to look at his face the way drones hover over the honey of the lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing the flute, enjoyed the beautiful smiling faces of the gopis. Then Krishna and Balaram were immediately received by their affectionate mothers, Yashoda and Rohini. And according to the time's demands, they began to fulfill the desires of their affectionate sons. Simultaneously, the mothers rendered service and bestowed benediction on their transcendental sons. They very nicely took care of their children by bathing and dressing them. Krishna was dressed in bluish garments and Balaram was dressed in yellowish garments, and they were given all sorts of ornaments and flower garlands. Being relieved of the fatigue of their day's work in the pasturing ground, they looked refreshed and very beautiful. They were given palatable dishes by their mothers, and they pleasantly ate everything. After eating, they were seated nicely on clean bedding, and the mothers began to sing various songs of their activities. As soon as they sat down on the bedding, they very quickly fell fast asleep. In this way, Krishna and Balaram used to enjoy Vrindavan life as cowherd boys. Sometimes Krishna used to go with his boyfriends and with Balaram, and sometimes he used to go alone with his friends to the bank of the Yamuna and tend the cows. Gradually, the summer season arrived, and one day, while in the field, the boys and cows became very thirsty and began to drink the water of the Yamuna. The river, however, was made poisonous by the venom of the great serpent known as Kaliya. Because the water was so poisonous, the boys and cows became visibly affected immediately after drinking. They suddenly fell down on the ground, apparently dead. Then Krishna, who is the life of all lives, simply cast his merciful glance over them, and all the boys and cows regained consciousness and began to look at one another with great astonishment. They could understand that by drinking the water of the Jamna, they had died, and that the merciful glance of Krishna restored their life. Thus, they appreciated the mystic power of Krishna, who is known as Yogeshwar, the master of all mystic yogis. That's the end of the story. I'll just quickly go through these pictures. The first one, of course, Krishna first expands as Balaram. Balaram is the source of all other expansions. You see it here in the center of the upper part. There's Krishna in his abode, and all of the expansions are coming from Krishna. And one of these expansions, the first expansion, Balaram, but one of these expansions is Vishnu. And there you see Vishnu lying down. Here's, as I said before, here's Arjuna, who's stealing Subhadra. Here's a picture of Baladev dancing with the gopis. Rasayatra. And here with Sandipani Muni, Krishna and Baladev. And here they are standing in the forest of Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram. And Krishna and Balaram in the village of Vrindavan with all of their friends. This is another Leela of Baladev, where he, notice that on the left, you see his plow. Baladev used to carry a plow everywhere. So that's his, if you're in doubt, if you see a statue or something, or picture, if there's any doubt, Baladev has a plow. So in this case, Jamna, this is Jamna personified, the river Jamna personified, who came and offered her prayers. It's another pastime. And here, of course, Krishna and Baladev playing in the forest with all of the cows and all their friends. Baladev massaging Krishna's feet. Here Krishna is playing with all of his friends. Another Leela where Krishna and Baladev had to jump off of a hill, a mountain. Here's Krishna and Balarama. In Vrindavan, ISKCON temple is Krishna Balarama. So here's the deities, Krishna and Balarama in Vrindavan. This is Mother Yashoda on the left and Rohini on the right with Baladev. And here's, of course, the killing of Dhenukasura. Now this is a Baladev from Cambodia. You see the plow. So this is Baladev from about 600 AD. What is that? About 1400 years ago in Cambodia. And this is Baladev and his, who is that? Rohini is his mother. His consort on the left. And Baladev is carrying his plow there with his left hand. And this is from a Jain temple in the outside of a Jain temple in Khajuraho. Is that how you pronounce it? Of course, here's Baladev on the left, Subhadra in the middle, and Lord Jagannath on the right. The Los Angeles Rath Yatra is just coming up on the 2nd of August. Is that tomorrow? And they're doing a drive-by darshan. Devotees can drive by in their cars and take darshan of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balarama. It's a modified form of Rath Yatra. And this is the end, last picture, the end of the Yadu dynasty, where all the Yadus are fighting with each other. So, there it is. Hare Krishna. So, any questions or comments or anything?
Well, thank you for taking the time to present everything. I think that was one of the coming into, Krishna consciousness and being around devotees. I always just thought it was very surreal to know that Krishna had a brother for one, and then he has this big mace and he's swinging it around, or he's fighting and they're going back and forth. You think of different versions or interpretations of God, and I think this is one of the very first things that kind of shocked me, coming from what I was brought up in. So I really appreciate you sharing.
The Leelas are everything to the Vaishnavas. Actually, in other, maybe all cultures, they have some kind of stories like this. Within the Christian culture, there's a lot of emphasis on the final days of Jesus Christ, but within Vaishnava tradition, Shaiva tradition, other traditions, There are many leelas of the Devas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Greeks, of course, have so many stories about human interaction with their gods. So these form the basis of culture. I've just been watching some talks by atheists, and there's really an increase in the Western and even global culture, but especially in Europe, United States, and Australia, atheism is pretty much on the rise. More people declare themselves atheist or agnostic and don't identify with any particular religion. And of course, in Africa and Asia and other places, South America, it's not as pronounced as in Western culture, but Western culture, you could say, is sort of global culture. So this kind of atheism, I mean, this idea of atheism is extremely common. And so I was watching their arguments and their presentations, some of the prominent atheists, and they're so against religion. But if you just look at it sort of from an external, not even considering God or sort of devotional aspect of religion, just from an external perspective, religions are responsible for culture. And there are so many aspects of culture. There's art, architecture, poetry, drama, sculpture, worship, all these components of culture, so many components. And within the Vaishnava culture, according to my analysis, there are two things. And it's not just my analysis, but there are two things that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu particularly appreciated. And that's the name, the holy name of Krishna or Vishnu. I mean, even Vishnu, sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go into ecstasy when he heard the name of, for example, Lord Nrsimha. So, and Krishna, and Leelas. So all these pastimes, the Leela that I just read, these are the essence of Vaishnava culture, and they're the essence, they're main features of many cultures. And so this idea of atheists to denigrate religion, it seems to me to be like this foolish example of someone out on the limb of a tree cutting off the limb while sitting on the limb. What are they going to replace these stories with? I mean, they complain also that, oh, these are made up stories, which I find ridiculous. They have their own made up stories, and they say, oh, everything has to be treated from the perspective of science. Science debunks all these stories. But the outgrowth of this atheistic mentality is still, the gap is there with story. Every movie is a story. Every novel is a story. And the argument of some of the atheists, probably most, is that the religious people have their made up stories. We can look everywhere and see made up stories. Science fiction. So there's a fascination with science. So what is the result? Science fiction. They have associated made up stories. That there's no way that one can get away from these stories. We need to have stories in our life. And here, these are the most sublime stories about Krishna. And to reject those, devotees accept them as the most important part of their life, the holy name and the leelas of Krishna. So devotional stories, and we try to integrate them more and more in our lives and become devoted to these stories and accept them literally as the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But let's say you're not a devotee exactly, or you don't completely accept this. To deny an entire culture that today is represented by hundreds of millions of people who observe these festivals and appreciate the art and this sculpture, the drama, the everything. Hundreds of millions of people, and for thousands of years, and literature and philosophy and everything has come from these leelas. And to deny this, even just from a cultural perspective, not from somebody who is fully devoted, pure devotee or something like this. Pure devotee meaning somebody who purely accepts the leelas as they are. It's just astonishing. I mean, it's just very unfortunate. Okay, I'm sort of rambling. Kurt, you wanted to say something? Yes.
Yeah, I just kind of riffing off of what you were saying, Prabhu. I always like Dayananda Maharaj's statement that atheism is a religious position. It's a religious assumption.
Oh, yes.
So so that's interesting. As far as Lord Balaram, there's a couple of things. I always I appreciated that when Mother Bhumi comes and petitions Lord Brahma to speak to go to the shore of the ocean of milk and call upon Lord Vishnu and Krishna and essentially ask for the appearance of Lord Krishna, and Krishna agrees that he's going to appear. Sheshanag / Lord Balaram basically says, this time I'm going to be the older brother. Last time I was the younger brother. This time I'm going to be the older brother so I can protect you. And so I always appreciated that. And also too, we get that same relationship with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Nityananda, of course, is the older brother. I mean, they're not biologically related, quote unquote, but there's this beautiful passage in Chaitanya Bhagavat when Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya first meet each other. This was just how thrilled they are and how elated they are to meet each other. They recognize each other, and Sachi Devi recognizes Nityananda as well, and there's a whole thing about that. But what I think is interesting is that Lord Balaram, we see him as you described, with the mace, and and particularly at the end when the Yadus, when the Yadus are essentially tearing each other apart and all of that, and very, very aggressive. But we look at Lord Nityananda, and he is actually considered in many ways more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. And so, it's like Lord Balaram, conquers people with weapons and so forth, and takes and knocks out demons, and and so on and so forth. Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, they do so with love, and so that speaks to the opportunity that we have in Kali Yuga, as terrible as it is. And I mean, all we have to do is look at the news. I mean, the latest thing is that Ireland is being overrun by ants and rats due to COVID, due to the ecosystem and everything being messed up via COVID, and now New York City and Ireland and other places are being overrun with rats. That's the latest thing. But anyway, I mean, we have all these challenges, but at the same time, we have just this outpouring of love. And ultimately, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they don't see our offenses; they see our effort, if you will, or our, they respond to the least bit of effort on our part, with utterances of the holy names, and so on and so forth. And my Guru Maharaj over the past, say, week and a half has really been emphasizing that the holy name. And this isn't to say that as Mother Sri Devi pointed out in the Bhagavatam class Friday, that we shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to chant the holy name so I can do whatever the heck I want. No, that's not, that shouldn't be our attitude, simply because that's not a loving attitude. That's not how we relate to anybody, let alone how we relate to God, how we relate to the Supreme. But, my Guru Maharaj has been emphasizing that, as Prabhupada emphasized, that chanting the Maha Mantra even once, it eliminates the sinful reactions of more than we can commit in a single lifetime. And again, thinking about sinful reaction, when we as Vaishnavas talk about sinful reactions, or aspiring Vaishnavas talk about sinful reactions, what we're talking about is that which separates us from our original position. So it's just getting back to Lord Balaram, it's just amazing that in the person of Lord Nityananda, we have just such an outpouring of mercy, and it's with the same vigor that Lord Balaram would smash demons and so on and so forth. Lord Nityananda is pouring out mercy with that same vigor. So I think that's just so remarkable, so.
Yes. Someone else? Sri Devi? Bhagwan Narada?
I'm fine. I've said my piece.
I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I was also thinking about how Lord Balaram is the perfect servitor of the Lord.
The sound is perfect. Is there some way you can get closer to the microphone or no?
Oh, okay, I'll try. I said, I was just listening to a class. First and foremost, thank you. This was so riveting. Just seeing all the pictures and seeing the pastimes, it's like you're actually in Vrindavan. So thank you very much for that. I was also thinking how Lord Balaram is the perfect servitor. He's always in all the five rasas serving the Lord, whether it's Vatsalya, whether it's neutral in the form of his paraphernalia, then as Sakha, as Dasya, and then conjugal. So Lord Balaram, as Adi Guru, he's teaching us that in every which way we can serve the Lord. Whatever our limitations, Krishna doesn't see our limitations, he just sees our love. And so however small we are, however insignificant our abilities or talents, everyone can do a little something to please the Lord. And just that attempt to please the Lord, my Guru Maharaj was just saying, just trying, not even doing, just trying to please the Lord pleases the Lord. So we can take so much courage, and we can take so much solace that Lord Balaram, in the form of the most merciful Lord Nityananda, is just giving the mercy right, left, center. He doesn't kill the demons, he kills the demoniac mentality. And that is such a loving thing to do, because in this age, all of us are having so many demoniac mentalities. So what a wonderful gift we have in the form of this Harinam Sankirtan. All we have to do, really, it's so simple. We just have to chant. We just have to follow this process. We just have to take shelter of Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and we can actually go back home in this very lifetime. My gosh, we have hit the jackpot here. I just can't get over it. So it's a great, great mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Hare Krishna.
Lee, you have your microphone ready or no? Somebody else? Narda, you said that you were going to chant now, or?
Yeah, I can do a little bit of chanting. 1 second.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Namo Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Namo Nityananda Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare
Okay, thank you so much. Quick reminder, on Tuesday we have our plate sale. If y'all like to pass the flyer around or shoot them to different groups that you may know of. I think starting next week I'll start sending it out on the newsletter. We haven't done a newsletter in a while. I just wanted to try a couple more times. Maybe after this week we'll have things even more tighter. All right.
And we have our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 8:30, we have our Bhagavatam reading class.
Yeah, and that's been going great.
It's not a class, it's just we read for half an hour and that's it. 8:30, 9 o'clock, just reading straight through. Very nice.
Yeah, I've been recording those as well on the